The world is full of strange and amazing places, some so bizarre they seem beyond explanation. Islands, often thought of as peaceful escapes, silent sanctuaries surrounded by turquoise waters, swaying palms, and golden shores, can sometimes be far stranger than we imagine. What if I told you there are islands that shift and spin as if caught in the pull of some unseen force? Or floating islands that rise from the depths, their secrets hidden beneath a veil of shimmering coral? A tiny, rotating island in Argentina that moves every day, and the enigmatic floating islands of the Maldives feel almost like fragments of another world. Come with us as we journey into the heart of the strangest islands on Earth. Okunoshima. The picturesque Okunoshima Island in Japan's inland sea is more commonly known as Rabbit Island. Roughly 1,000 floppy-eared feral rabbits call this rather tiny island home. Its circumference is only 2.5 kilometers. What amuses me most is how these inquisitive locals have figured out that visitors usually bring food. Whenever they hear the rustling of treats, they cluster together. In spite of its idyllic look, Okunoshima has a mysterious and eerie past. The island was once utilized to manufacture thousands of tons of toxic gas during World War II before it became a rabbit paradise. Because of how clandestine the facilities were, the island was erased from all Japanese maps during that period. During this time, the rabbits may have been brought to the island for testing, but unfortunately, many were put down once the facilities shut down. So, where are all the bunnies that are currently available? It is said that in the 1970s, a small group of school children let loose some rabbits on the island. The number of rabbits has increased dramatically since then. Because hunting is illegal and there are no natural enemies in this fantastical haven, these adorable animals have flourished. Before we move on, let's talk about a fascinating island that looks like a giant phallus. Is it naturally crafted into this shape, or did human intervention turn this island into it? What do you think? Ball's Pyramid. An old shield volcano that occurred around 7 million years ago is truly what Ball's Pyramid is made of, the eroded relic of an ancient volcano. It is the highest sea stack on Earth, reaching a staggering 1,843 feet in height, roughly 400 feet higher than the Empire State Building. Despite the fact that its dizzying height makes many people queasy, daring explorers view its towering top as an opportunity for adventure. This steep sea spire wasn't mastered by climbers until 1965, despite its discovery in 1788. This island is notable for more than just its height, though. On a solitary bush 330 feet up the otherwise desolate spire, environmentalists found a colony of unsettlingly huge stick insects in 2001. Species Dryocostilus australis, more commonly known as land lobsters or walking sausages, was believed to be extinct for 70 years due to its terrible reputation. Despite the widespread joy among environmentalists over this discovery, someone probably fought the impulse to torch the entire island. Christmas Island. Just looking at the name makes Christmas Island sound like a party. Not because there's a jolly old man in red living there, but because this little island boasts one of the most breathtaking displays of verdant and vermilion in nature. This small island, which is more than 930 miles west of Australia's mainland, has spectacular red tides once a year. If you're wondering what this Christmas miracle is all about, it's really the progeny of the island's renowned red crabs. In the weeks leading up to the hatching season, 500,000 of these extraordinary crustaceans travel to the same beaches to lay their eggs. Surprisingly, the juvenile crabs return to the island following their natural inclinations. In years when a large number of them make it through the ocean's brutal conditions, they descend upon the verdant shoreline in their millions and start making their way to their homes in the island's inner woodland. In order to accomplish their goal, they traverse obstacles such as highways, rocks, and even humans. Santa Claus might want to consider trading in his reindeer for 50 million red crabs, given his unrelenting Christmas spirit. Nikoshima. The island of Nikoshima isn't the sole Japanese territory inhabited by hairy beings. Nikoshima, literally cat islands, are a group of 11 tiny islands off the coast of Japan that are home to thousands of adorable felines. There were thriving fishing communities on several of these islands in the 1940s. The rodents that plagued the local boats and jeopardized the silkworms needed to weave their nets were kept in check by the locals' adoption of cats. But the population fell in tandem with the fishing business. In contrast, the felines persisted in flourishing. Feeding these fuzzy friends was thought to bring good fortune to the locals. Therefore, they multiplied rapidly. The human population can be outnumbered 6 to 1 by cats on certain islands, like Aoshima. Cats may be an uncommon sight, but they've brought prosperity and fortune to the islands by reviving the economy thanks to the influx of cat-loving tourists. It appears like the people and the cats will soon be living well together. Migingo. Despite its diminutive size, less than half a soccer field, Mingo Island encounters formidable obstacles. The waters here are rich with fish and very valuable, drawing fishermen to live on the island as they cast their lines just off the eastern coast of Lake Victoria, the biggest freshwater lake in Africa. Surprisingly, 500 people have made their home on the rocky, uneven dome, which now resembles a massive armored turtle made of corrugated iron. In 2004, the island was claimed by Kenya and Uganda for protection after it was targeted by vicious pirates due to its rich fishing grounds. As a result, tensions rose between the two countries as they fought over control of the lucrative island and its abundant fish stocks. What the inhabitants of Migingo called Africa's Little War suddenly engulfed the modest town. Uganda maintains its position and refuses to budge, despite Google Earth's unequivocal depiction of the island within Kenyan waters. The rotating island. Even though Argentina is famous for its stunning scenery, there is one that looks completely out of place. A vast, almost perfectly round island sits nested in the marshy swamps of the Paraná Delta, bordered by a little channel of pristine water. This 387-foot disk is reportedly moving within the limits of its little lake, which is even more peculiar than the island's astounding symmetry, as revealed by time-lapse satellite photographs taken since 2003. It appears to follow a regular schedule, as it is seen moving along the water's edge every day. At first, several researchers thought it might be an elaborate hoax. Nevertheless, their investigation into the location turned up no signs of human intervention. So they are still left with more questions than answers. How on earth could something so perfectly formed happen by chance? A more reasonable explanation evolved, albeit some outlandish thinkers had proposed that it might be an alien gateway to a UFO base. According to this explanation, the island's shape is similar to that of an ice disk, which is formed when ice is eroded by water currents that cause it to rotate. The circular depression in the lake may have been formed when the island of Argentina began to spin due to a slow-moving stream beneath the marsh, if this is indeed the case. The hidden rainbow. Though the island nation of Mauritius is most known for its breathtaking marine scenery, the tiny landmass hides a far more dynamic and beautiful interior. The stunning, seven-colored earth of Mauritius is located in the Chamarel district in the island's southern half. This remarkable expanse of ridged soils displays a spectrum of strange and vibrant colors. Even more intriguing, though, is the physics that underpins these surreal dunes. Around 2 million years ago, the island was produced by an active volcano. The basalt that formed during these eruptions went through an unusual metamorphosis, slowly turning into clay minerals like aluminum oxide and iron. These minerals display a rainbow of hues, from blazing reds and oranges to dazzling blues and purples, in contrast to their harsh black basalt parent material. The World Islands. Built from 11 billion cubic feet of sand dredged from the Persian Gulf, this extraordinary archipelago is comprised of 300 islands that mimic the shape of a globe map. Since the project covered millions of square feet of shoreline, astronauts were able to track its development from orbit. The little islands were each given the name of a nation so that purchasers may feel as though they were purchasing a little piece of the world. Richard Branson, the entrepreneur who reportedly offered to buy the United Kingdom in 2006, was one of the notable buyers. You'd think that someone of his means might choose a less showy suit for a beachside photo shoot. One of these islands might be yours for as little as $7 million or as much as $1.8 billion, despite appearances to the contrary. Despite starting in 2003, the project was projected to be completed in 2020 due to the financial meltdown of 2008, but these uninhabited islands still look like they have a long way to go. Vulcan Point. Vulcan Point is precisely where Inception takes place if it were an island. Unlike a dream within a dream, this one-of-a-kind island is part of a Pacific archipelago. It sits in a lake that is itself part of a volcano that is part of a bigger island. Set in the lake formed by the Taal volcano's crater, this intriguing small island is sure to captivate. On the island of Luzon sits Taal, the Philippines' second most active volcano, which is encircled by the lake of the same name. Located around 500 miles from the Vietnamese and Chinese shores, the Philippines are home to 7,100 islands, Luzon included. Your viewpoint is quite expansive. The lake in the middle of the crater isn't visible until you enlarge the image, though. In January 2020, Taal volcano erupted, as you might have heard. The eruption was so violent that it dried up the crater lake and buried the land around it beneath ash several feet deep. It appears like Vulcan Point has miraculously survived the catastrophe. The lake will be filled up by rain in a few years, according to experts. But for the time being, this once beautiful fantasy is more of a nightmare than an enchantment. Litla Dimun. The breathtaking Faroe Islands are a group of 18 huge volcanic islands that Denmark claims as its own, located far out in the dangerous North Atlantic Ocean. Of these, Litla Dimun stands out as the smallest and, dare I say it, most majestic, thanks to its delightful and distinctive feature, its own personal cloud. Its 1,358-foot peak is adorned with a lenticular cloud that resembles a fluffy white hat, formed when the air temperature drops and the moisture condenses. If you were to look at the mountain from afar, you may think it's a green jello parfait with whipped cream on top. Despite its idyllic appearance, the island is actually quite small, less than 1 square mile, and totally deserted. The island's proximity to precipitous cliffs necessitating expert navigation is a contributing factor, as is the frequently severe North Atlantic weather. Jonsvatnet Lake. A large lake with an unusual feature is located in the very center of Norway. Troynoya, an island with a completely round shape, looks like a green soccer ball thrown into the water from the northern borders. The island's positioning, rather than its form or size, is what makes it noteworthy. Yet, its length is little under 200 feet, which is roughly equivalent to the breadth of the Lincoln Memorial. This verdant island, situated at the northernmost tip of the vast 5-mile-long lake, can look like the world's most deserted location in a perfectly composed photograph. For those who prefer to keep to themselves, this barren island might be the perfect refuge, while for those who thrive in social situations, it could be what they're looking for. In your opinion, how much longer would it be until you saw another human being here? Sable Island. Observers may be able to make out what seems like a gigantic serpent slithering through the water 180 miles off the coast of Nova Scotia, Canada. This fascinating shape, which is around 26 miles long and slightly less than a mile wide, may terrify fishermen, but fear not, it is not a serpent. Formed on the ridge of a continental shelf carved by glaciers more than 15,000 years ago, this deserted crescent is a windswept sandbar called Sable Island. Sand has piled up on the ridge since then, raising it to a level where grasses and one pine tree can grow. Roughly 500 wild horses call this island home, and they brave the terrible conditions that separate them from the mainland every day. The question is, how did they go out to sea at all? These wild horses may not be aquatic in nature, but where they came from on the island is still a mystery. Opinions on their origins vary. Some assume they came from a long-lost shipwreck, while others hold the belief that they were removed during Canada's Great Deportation and stashed somewhere they would remain undiscovered. Whatever their means of transportation, these horses have transformed the desolate beach into an extraordinary sanctuary. Ruined Island. Located on the periphery of the breathtaking Marshall Islands, the oddly shaped Runit Dome stands as a stark contrast to the breathtaking natural beauty of Enigmatic Atoll. This enormous concrete formation looks like a crashed extraterrestrial craft. Despite appearances, the 18-inch concrete cap conceals 111,000 cubic yards of radioactive waste that was created by humans, nearly enough to fill 34 Olympic swimming pools. The islands were a U.S. nuclear bomb site in the 1940s and 1950s. The location was blanketed with radioactive debris from the detonation of 1.6 Hiroshima bombs each day for 12 years. Unfortunately, a comprehensive decontamination effort was not funded by Congress when the time came for cleanup. The American soldiers instead removed the polluted dirt, mixed it with cement, and deposited it into a 350-foot blow crater, which they subsequently filled with concrete panels. The Marshall Islands administration was left in a state of understandable fury when they were abruptly given responsibility for the site and gave it the moniker The Tomb. Now, after more than 4 decades, visible fissures are beginning to form. Breaking portions of the unlined tomb might release deadly amounts of radiation onto the earth and water around it. In an otherwise picture-perfect paradise, the tomb has become a ticking time bomb, and the United States has never officially apologized for it. Underground Island. Although the majority of islands may be located in water, there is one extraordinary underground island that sticks out. In the center of a huge abandoned salt mine, about 400 feet below ground, sits the stunning island of Salina Turda. The world's largest salt mine museum includes this illuminated subterranean attraction, which has been meticulously excavated by hand since 1271. Workers laboriously excavated this enormous cave using just pickaxes and elbow grease for more than 660 years. The mine now contains a little underground lake that encircles a little island in the middle, which is exquisitely decorated. It looks really breathtaking when illuminated by the gentle light of the lights. We can only pray that they are never without electricity. Bidong Island. The peculiar mystery of this island in Fiji cannot be concealed by its beautiful beaches or pristine oceans. This unique 42-acre island stands out in the middle of the Fijian archipelago, not far from Vanuatu's northern coast. Despite the island's verdant foliage, colorful flowers, and variety of species, 87 lots of high-end real estate have been developed on most of its acreage. Some pieces of this beach paradise are available for as little as $75,000 and as much as $125,000. Their investment is well-deserved, I'm sure, because of the spectacular vistas these buyers get to enjoy. Floating islands. The islands of the Maldives could appear to float on a foggy day above the breathtakingly blue waters. But we hate to break it to you, but these islands aren't really floating, no matter how interesting it might be. To be more precise, they aren't even actual islands. The 1,200 coral reefs that make up the Maldives span an impressive range of sizes, from almost a square mile to barely a few feet across. Atolls are clusters of reefs that form around the bases of dormant oceanic volcanoes. As the molten rock solidified from these eruptions millions of years ago, islands began to take shape. Corals and other marine life started to flourish at their bases throughout the years, eventually leading to the formation of large bordering reefs. Even while corals were thriving, volcanoes were gradually submerged by increasing sea levels, creating barrier reefs in their wake. Even after they began to decompose into sand, these corals kept growing, and in some instances they became big enough to harbor animals. Therefore, they have undoubtedly surfaced from the depths, even if they can't float. Monariki Island. You might not be familiar with the name Monariki Island, but you've probably seen it somewhere. This beautiful and deserted island nation is located in Fiji. Its breathtaking coral reef encircles this volcanic island, which is less than a mile long and about 2,000 feet wide. One could assume that getting stuck in this paradise with its verdant foliage, turquoise lagoons, and turquoise oceans wouldn't be that horrible. One well-known person has surprisingly already been there. In the 2000 film Cast Away, Tom Hanks and Wilson, a volleyball player playing with Hanks, shipwrecked and set against the backdrop of Monariki. The island had little fame and few attractions prior to the worldwide success of the film. Away Island Beach is now a mecca for fans of both Tom Hanks and Owen Wilson, who travel from all over the globe to visit. Who would have thought that a volleyball could steal the show from a 16-time Oscar winner? Gaiola Island. On the surface, Gaiola Island off the coast of Naples seems like it came from a Salvador Dali picture. Connecting the two little islands is a slender stone arch that looks precarious as a tightrope. The oddest thing about Gaiola Island, though, isn't this strange bridge. The great mansions that sit atop it have been abandoned due to the gloomy history that surrounds it. In the early 1900s, the island's owner, a Swiss man called Hans Braun, was discovered brutally killed and wrapped in an old rug. This began the island's infamous reputation for curses. Sadly, not long after that, his wife perished in a drowning accident. During his time on the island, the subsequent owner, Otto Grunbach, a German, suffered a heart attack and passed away. In the wake of his demise, novelist Maurice Yves Sandoz committed suicide in a Swiss mental institution. After that, the curse continued to bring financial catastrophe to the owners who came after them and the premature deaths of other members of their families. The lawsuit involving oil magnate John Paul Getty was the most publicized. The Calabrian mafia abducted his youngest grandchild in a particularly horrific episode. They wanted $3 million in ransom and threatened John with a severed ear. Nobody has bothered to disturb the island since 1978, when its last known owner left. This stunning island seems to be fighting off attempts to claim it as its own. However, was it truly essential to impose such a severe curse? Just a "Do Not Disturb" sign would have been enough, right? Clipperton Island, Pacific Ocean. This breathtaking coral atoll in the Pacific Ocean, governed by France, is situated approximately 580 miles from Mexico's western coast and 2,900 miles from Tahiti. Its astonishing distance from the capital of France, Paris, is 6,600 miles. Disputes between Mexico and France on the atoll's control have resulted in an arbitration agreement that is cited as an example of international law even today. The island, which was named after an English pirate who may have attacked Spanish ships from there, is now home to no permanent inhabitants. There was a time when people lived on the island, but it was formally evacuated in 1917. Survivors of shipwrecks who sought safety there have been the most common visitors since then. Socotra Island, Yemen. One of the world's most biodiverse places, this lesser-known archipelago is situated around 240 miles south of the Arabian Peninsula. The Republic of Yemen is home to the largest island, Socotra, which is 82 miles long and 31 miles wide. Because of its unusual topography, Socotra's plants and animals were able to develop separately from those of neighboring landmasses millions of years ago. For example, the island is inhabited by the renowned dragon's blood tree, a tree with an umbrella-like appearance that yields a sap that is deep red in color. These are endemic, meaning they cannot be found anywhere else on Earth, together with more than 300 other plant species. The blue baboon tarantula is just one of many spiders and crabs that share this trait with the island's many birds and reptiles, such as skinks and chameleons. The ecological significance of Socotra led to its 2008 designation as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The goal is to keep the island as unspoiled as possible so that future generations can enjoy its unique beauty. Palm Islands, Dubai. Due to its abundant oil reserves, Dubai has experienced tremendous growth in the last several decades. Announced in the early 2000s, the Palm Islands are among its most ambitious initiatives. Off the coast of the city is a trio of completely man-made islands. Palm Jumeirah was the first to be finished in 2007. It has at least 28 five-star hotels and a plethora of individual mansions in its palm tree-shaped circular layout. The bigger Palm Jebel Ali is still unfinished because of money problems caused by the financial crises of 2007 and 2008. The Dera Islands, the third island, also had similar difficulties. The building nevertheless proceeded, despite the obstacles, modifying the coastline in the process of transporting hundreds of tons of limestone and enormous amounts of sand and gravel. There have been discernible effects on wildlife behavior and coastline erosion, validating initial fears about the environmental impact. Particularly affected are aquatic organisms. As building techniques and technology improve, the concept of man-made islands is growing in favor. However, the Palm Islands should serve as a warning about the consequences of rushing into such projects without first considering their impact on the ecosystem. Big Major Cay, Bahamas. You most likely picture stunning sandy beaches, pristine oceans, and a wide variety of animals when you think of the Bahamas. But one island sticks out because of its special spin. At this time, there are no humans residing on Big Major Cay in the Exuma district. What Pig Beach does have, though, is a population of about 60 feral pigs, and people go there to see them. The story's origins are murky, but most people assume that a party of sailors abandoned the pigs on the island with the intention of coming back to devour them. They never returned, so the pigs were free to forage for food from 3 springs on the island and breed on the leftovers. Perhaps the pigs were the only ones to survive a shipwreck in the area, or they were just a tourist trap to draw people to this undiscovered corner of the Bahamas. No matter what happened, the end effect is a tropical island unlike any other, and it has been featured in countless films and photos. Island of the Dolls, Mexico. Because of its spooky past and the peculiar artifacts displayed among the trees and houses, the Island of the Dolls is sometimes named as one of the most haunted islands on Earth. Don Julian Santana owned it in the 1950s. It was located in the Xochimilco Canals, south of Mexico City. A young woman who was on vacation to the island supposedly perished in the canal after getting her arm caught in some weeds. Don Julian started having paranormal experiences after her body was discovered on the island's shores. He retrieved abandoned dolls from the sea and strung them from the trees close to her discovery after hearing a voice pleading for them. In the half-century that followed, he built shrines all over the island and continued to collect dolls out of fear that she would haunt him. Reportedly, 50 years after the girl's drowning, Don Julian passed away in 2001 at the very location. Visitors now often bring their own tributes to the island, further enriching the collection. As it has grown in popularity as a tourist destination since then, visitors report shivers, hearing voices, and a haunting quiet in specific spots, contributing to the island's ever-increasing reputation for the supernatural. Because of this, it is now undeniably one of the most peculiar islands in the world. Snake Island, Brazil. Snake Island, or Ilha da Queimada Grande, lies 21 miles offshore from Brazil's coast. Although it seems like any other island from the outside, it is actually one of the most hazardous locations on Earth for human habitation. Approximately 4,000 golden lancehead vipers call this 110-acre island their home. It's the only place on Earth where these vipers may live freely. Snakes of this species are able to ingest their prey more easily because their hemotoxic venom destroys flesh and tissue. Serious side effects, including edema, vomiting, nausea, brain hemorrhage, and even death, can result after a bite.
We would have 6 hours to get off the island.
Yeah.
Into a hospital.
Well, up to.
Up to?
Yeah.
Oh, so we could die at 2 hours and 45 minutes.
The majority of snake attacks in Brazil are caused by golden lanceheads, which have evolved independently from mainland lancehead species. On the other hand, the venom of the snakes on Snake Island can be up to 5 times stronger, greatly amplifying the risk of death. Because there are so many birds on the island, these snakes have enough prey. However, because of their small population and the threat of inbreeding, they are considered severely endangered. Researchers and Navy officials are the only ones allowed access to Snake Island due to the stringent regulations. Up until the 1920s, the island's lighthouse was the exclusive responsibility of the small human population. The story is that the lighthouse was mechanized after a family was murdered by snakes that crept in through the windows, killing the keepers. Deer Island, New York. The Thousand Islands are an expansive archipelago of 1,800 islands located in the St. Lawrence River, which rises in Lake Ontario and flows north along the international border between Canada and the U.S. One of the more enigmatic is Deer Island, which lies near Alexandria Bay in New York, and is situated in the municipality of Alexandria Pines, sugar maples, and black oaks make up the bulk of the island's vegetation. Various artifacts attest to Deer Island's long history of human habitation. But the most intriguing building is a beach house, and it's not your average house.
We're out back.
Yale University's clandestine senior society, Skull and Bones, owns the whole 40-acre property. As a private gathering spot for its members, this site also functions as a retreat, furnished with sports facilities and a fishing lake. Skull and Bones, often known as the Order, has been linked to a plethora of conspiracy theories, some of which include allegations that they have connections to the Illuminati and power over prestigious American organizations. Important decisions and covert agreements could take place on Deer Island if any of these possibilities are correct. The whole truth about Deer Island, whether it's a covert location for elite meetings and conversations that could change the world or just idle chatter, is known only to the members of the society. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey to some of the world's strangest islands. These remote spots remind us that the world is full of surprises. Nature never ceases to amaze. If you enjoyed this tour, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts on which island you found the strangest in the comments. Until next time.